So I was asked recently, and I think it was a genuine, good faith question, why I believe the current administration is burning the country down. Before I answer this, I just want to say that I'm grateful for the question, and I'm grateful that it was asked with civility and respect. I wish more conversations looked like this. It was also clear from the way that the question was framed that we don't see what's happening the same way. I think that matters. Increasing our understanding of what's going on and our understanding of each other doesn't begin in agreement. It begins when two people with different perspectives respects each other enough to at least enter conversation with an open mind. So I am grateful. So the two main concerns that were raised by this individual were immigration and Trump derangement syndrome. So I want to be very clear about this point too. I have no interest in degrading them or dismissing their perspective. Their voice matters. They matter as a human being just as much as anyone else. And fear, regardless of where it comes from, is still fear. So question number one, why do I think that Trump and those around him are burning the country down? I'm going to try to be as concise as I can here. Number one, the delegitimization of the democratic process. For years, well on a decade, democratic outcomes have been treated as legitimate only when they benefit Trump or the MAGA movement. When they don't, then the systems and institutions themselves are declared as corrupt, rigged, or invalid. I don't think it's accidental. Political scientists and historians agree that delegitimizing elections and democratic institutions is one of the earliest, most reliable warning signs of authoritarian drift. It's a type of boundary testing. You don't disestablish democracy in one fell swoop. You kind of slowly chip away at it until it becomes something else altogether without even realizing it. When leaders repeatedly cast doubt on the legitimacy of election, the legitimacy of courts, the legitimacy of governing institutions, they're not just complaining. They're laying the groundwork for other things further on down the road. And I think we're seeing some of those. Two, the weaponization of law enforcement and security forces. It's important to say this part really clearly. Deportations and removals themselves aren't new. The highest number of removals under a sitting president in modern history happened under the Obama administration, where he removed over 3 million people from our country during his presidency. That comparison matters because it highlights a very significant difference. What we're seeing right now isn't just enforcement. If it was, then it would look a lot like it did during Obama's administration, and we'd be seeing higher numbers. Deportations are not actually higher than historic peaks. Arrests are, deportations are not. What is different is how enforcement's being used. It's being used selectively, visibly, and aggressively to create fear, unrest, and instability. Authoritarian systems don't abolish legal frameworks or systems. They start using them to their whim to shape psychological and emotional environments. Hungary and Russia are really good contemporary examples of this pattern playing out in recent history. The law stays on the books, but its application becomes politically motivated. Number three, the creation of an enemy within. One of the hallmarks of any fascist movement is the invention of an internal enemy. In our case, immigrants have been the primary target of direct action recently. Beyond that, though, Democrats are labeled as radical, Marxist, leftist, crazy people. LGBTQ plus people are framed as social threats. Academics and journalists are treated as enemies, and even protesters are increasingly cast as dangerous agitators or paid agitators. What's more, though, is even Republican Party members who oppose the MAGA movement or President Trump are quickly branded as traitors. What's really important here is this. There's no evidence supporting any of these broad accusations or claims. These are just labels that are being assigned to people because they aren't liked or they said something mean or critical. Let's talk about crime, since that's what was brought up by the questioner. The most comprehensive data set that I could find for crime by immigration status came from Texas. The Cato Institute found that 685 convictions out of 100,000 people came from undocumented immigrants. 1,321 convictions per 100,000 came from native-born Americans. Using per capita rates, This means that a native-born citizen of the United States is 52% more likely to be convicted of a crime than an undocumented immigrant. The narrative that immigrants are killers, rapists, and pedophiles isn't just inaccurate, it's demonstrably false. Number 4, corruption and self-enrichment. I don't need a leader to be likable. I don't care if they're an asshole, as long as they're an honest one. By conservative estimates, the Trump family's net worth has increased by roughly $3 billion in the last year. That level of corruption while in office is unprecedented in U.S. history. At the same time, Americans are struggling with rising costs despite promises to the contrary. When public office becomes a pathway to personal wealth, it isn't strength, it's theft and a con job. Number 5, assault on media and truth. Authoritarian systems require narrative control. In roughly the past year, the president has filed about 5 lawsuits against major organizations just because they said shit he didn't like. But beyond the formal legal action, the repeated use of phrases like fake news and the constant attacks on journalists serve a deeper purpose. Historian Timothy Snyder said this really well. When people are persuaded to believe nothing, then power becomes unquestionable. This isn't about criticism. It's about flooding the environment with doubt so that truth feels unreachable. Number 6, normalization of political violence. One of the most alarming things to me is how violence is being increasingly excused, minimized, and in a lot of cases celebrated. When supporters are cheering brutality, when they're justifying deaths or dismissing violence as deserved, then a very significant moral line has been crossed. Authoritarian systems don't start with mass violence. They begin by the normalization of violence and making violence acceptable in the minds of ordinary people. Read stuff by people like Hannah Arendt. It will be very illuminating. So, where does that leave us? For all of the upheaval and the churn and the chaos that we're all feeling and the pressure, almost no one's life has meaningfully improved over the last year except for a very small group of wealthy people. Meanwhile, the systems that once protected citizens and provided a means to immigrate into this country are being replaced with structures that very closely resemble authoritarian regimes from the past 150 years. Those are the reasons, some of them, why I believe this administration is burning the country down. Now, let's talk about the second concern, Trump derangement syndrome. It's not a real diagnosis. It's a manufactured term, but it doesn't mean that it's harmless or meaningless. Rhetorically, it works because it does a couple of important things. It turns disagreement into illness. It delegitimizes debate without having to engage in the substance of conversation or uncomfortable conversations. It signals loyalty to an in-group. And I think this is one of the biggest things. It shifts focus from the conduct of an administration or an individual or an institution. It shifts the focus from that to the emotional or psychological state of the critic. It's a get-out-of-jail-free card. Once invoked, the conversation stops being about what a leader has done or what an institution has done, and it becomes about whether the person criticizing them is sick or not. This is profoundly dangerous in a system that claims to value free speech. I don't expect everyone to agree with me. It's not the point. The point is that there are patterns here, and these patterns are real. They are documented, and they are historically recognizable. Disagreement doesn't make someone deranged. Corruption is corruption, regardless of what title someone has. And calling something like dissent a pathology doesn't make you a legitimate leader. I'm Ian. This is the Decency Rebellion.